If you're watching this, then you're probably one of three founders. You're doing all the sales yourself and are exhausted. So every call, every email, every proposal, every follow-up, it's all on you. And you know, if it stopped, the new business would stop. The pipeline would literally dry up overnight. Or you've got a salesperson who isn't hitting the numbers. You're managing the sales team and you know that if you were on the calls, you would close the deals. When the salespeople get on, they fuck it up. Or you and your team are closing some deals, but you just know that you're leaving money on the table. It's nowhere near enough or what you feel you are capable of if everything was dialed in. All three problems have the same root cause. I'm Joe Milnes, I'm the founder of Revitech, and I've coached over 300 founders to generate over £185 million in closed revenue across 60 different industries. I've been optimizing sales processes for over 20 years, and over that time, I've seen the same 10 things kill deals time and time again. So in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk you through step by step every single one of the main mistakes we see businesses make so you don't have to make the same mistakes. I'm going to walk you through every single point, not mechanics, not theory. It's going to be the absolute mechanics, what to say, what to do so you can close more deals in less time, and I'll give you the exact fixes you can put into place this week. By the end of this video, you know precisely what's broken in your own sales process and what you can do to fix it quickly so you can generate more revenue. Point one, your discovery calls feel great and that's why deals are dying. The problem is when people have discovery calls with prospects that get along and are friendly and responsive, often people fall into a trap and thinking that that's a good opportunity. But in fact, it's killing your deals because what happens is that discovery in these instances tends to stay on the surface because we like dealing at this level where we think we're building rapport and we're being friendly. And the discovery questions are like a stone skimming along the surface. When proper discovery challenges the prospect to think in a different way. This involves friction, which has to break the rapport, but people don't like doing that and so resort to keeping good discovery and keep on having these surface level conversations. The problem is when you're coming to put your proposal, there isn't enough cost of inaction in the proposal for the prospect to take action. It's all too comfortable and that's why the deals don't go anywhere. The fix is whenever you're talking about a problem with a prospect, you should be following up and exploring the business impact of these problems. How often does that happen? What's the knock-on effect? If nothing happens about that in 90 days, what will the business look like? What happens if nothing changes? These sorts of questions force the prospect to think in a world where they haven't taken action and see how bad the problem gets, rather than staying on the surface level. By doing this, you'll open the prospect up for them to see the true cost of inaction. Cost of inaction wins deals. Tension wins deals. Being nice, surface level and building rapport, asking about the weather does not win deals. One thing you can do now is for every question that you ask on discovery, when a prospect is talking about a problem, a goal or an aim, ask yourself, so what? What happens if this isn't fixed? What happens if you don't hit that goal? Is it going to be that bad? By asking these questions, you get into the root cause of the prospect's motivation and it'll open up the rest of the call. Point two, your champion loved it, but the boss said no. And you gave your champion nothing to work with. Your champion loved the demo. They were all excited on the call because they get it. They're living the emotional pain that your solution does. And then they say, I'll go and get sign off. But the problem is that champions are emotionally invested in your solution, where the person that signs it off is logically invested. They're looking for a business justification. What happens is when you go to ask a champion to advocate for you and sell the solution, they go and rehash it badly, which means that the person like an FD or a managing director who's looking for a business justification can't see one, and therefore the business doesn't get approved. And that's why the champion will not come back to you, because they don't like giving you bad news. So that'll be the same deal that stays in the pipeline for years and years, while the prospect keeps saying, oh yeah, we're just going to get round to it. It was just being shifted. Not giving your prospects enough information to decide means they are deciding not to take action, which means it is a no for you at this time. By educating your prospects and giving them assets which sell for you when you aren't in the room, then it allows you to clear the way for other stakeholders. The fix to this is, like I said, create assets that sell for you when you aren't in the room. One-page business cases by a guy called Nate Nasrallah is a super powerful one for engaging other stakeholders. But then your proposals as well. Any person should be able to pick your proposal up and see exactly what they get, why they should take action now, and why they should take it with you. If your proposal doesn't answer those four things, and no, that's not going to come from an executive summary, then put it in the bin, rip it up, start again. I've got another video on how you do a killer proposal linked in the description. One thing to do now, before your proposal goes out, ask yourself, if I'm not on the call when they present this, does this document close the deal for me? Does it sell for me when it isn't in the room? And point 3, now you sent the proposal, but you never got a reply. You wrote a proposal, you sent it over, and the prospect said they'd come back to you after they review it, and then silence. You followed up and you followed up, and they said, yeah, we're still reviewing it internally. Followed up 2 weeks later, and then more silence. The proposal didn't die. It's not being reviewed. You've just lost momentum. Proposals are not boomerangs. If you throw them over to prospects, do not expect them to come back. Things happen. Think of your inbox now. You have definitely got emails in there where it's people that are interested and you want to go back to them to do something, but stuff happens. Noise, fires, reactive things that you need to do in your business happen. The prospects are exactly the same. Whenever you do a proposal, you should be booking a walkthrough and walking the prospect through. Otherwise, you've not got any opportunity to control the narrative when they ask questions or voice any concerns. This rule should be a non-negotiable. It's the most common fuck up we see across many different sales teams. If you send a proposal in an email, you cannot expect it to come back. You have to book a call, walk the prospect through and show them what you're delivering so that you can feed back and answer questions, explain away objections. Because in the absence of you being there, the prospect is just going to go to a world where the uncertainty is just too much. If they're not absolutely certain, they will default to, oh, it's just too much effort. By being on the call and walking them through the proposal, you've got the opportunity to control the narrative. Next action point is just make sure at the end of the call, if you're putting a proposal together, say, I'm going to put together a tailored proposal. It will be step by step exactly what we've discussed today and be exactly what you need to meet your goals. The next step will be to book a call on the back and I'll walk you through it step by step to check it's exactly as you need. Is that okay? Yes. Get buy-in at the front of the call and then it makes it easier at the end of the call. Simple. Before I go into the next 7, I want to take a little moment just to say everything that we're covering in this video is covered in depth and we build it for you on our Sync Selling program, which is where you get access to me. We build all the assets. You get access to an AI version of me and a sales coach to help you close more deals in less time with less effort. Right now, we're offering a full diagnostic as long as you meet the qualifying criteria, which is you're over 20K a month and you're in a high ticket B2C or B2B sales. Then we will diagnose and fix the biggest sales bottlenecks in your business for free. Why free? Because we don't think you should have to pay us thousands of pounds to find out if we're any good or not. So we'll just let you figure it out for yourself. So if you have hired salespeople and they've not worked out, if you are generating leads but they aren't closing, if you feel that your salespeople or you are losing deals that you should be winning, then click on the link in the description, book a call, and then we will start solving your bottlenecks straight away. Back in the room. Point 4, nobody cares what you sell. They only care if you can help them. Prospects do not give a shit about you, your product, or your experience. The only thing prospects care about is whether you can help them get what they want or reach their goals. That's it. But most founders and people that we speak to open up their demos or their pitch decks and it's all about them and what they do and who they've done it for. Prospect doesn't care, not yet. Every feature you talking to them about is connecting to something that they don't care about yet. You have to link the products and what you do to a specific pain point that the prospect is experiencing. Otherwise, it's not going to resonate. The fix is to start every sales interaction with some form of discovery. It can be part of a call, it can be one call, it can be 2 calls, whatever you need. But by understanding the prospect's world, why they should take action, what the problems are, what the impact of those problems are, before presenting your solution, it gives you the ability to tailor your pitch, proposal, demo, anything that you are doing to their specific situation. The result is that the perceived value of your product or service will increase exponentially just as a result of tailoring it to what the prospect is looking to achieve. Before you put any proposal together or quote together, make sure you can map your proposal or solution back to at least 3 or 4 problems that the prospect is experiencing. Keep doing this at every stage of the sales process and watch the difference in reaction that your proposals will get when you're walking the prospect through talking about their world rather than just talking about yours. Point 5, maybe isn't a pipeline, it's a graveyard. The problem is that maybes lull us into a false sense of security. We hear, oh yeah, I'll take it to the team, or that sounds interesting, and we think, think, oh yeah, that's brilliant, deal's coming across. When in reality, a maybe is not a yes. If it's not a yes, then it's an absolute no. It's just because the prospect hasn't got enough information to decide yes. Do not be fooled into thinking that maybes are good for your pipeline. They're often no's in disguise. The key to being an effective salesperson is flushing out the number of maybes out of your pipeline and getting to no as quickly as possible. Yes or no is brilliant. A no is much better than a maybe because you can waste time, effort, money and resource on chasing maybes when in reality, they're not going to come across. The way I like to think about it is if you are absolutely rocking in your close rate, a good closer will close at somewhere around 30% of their opportunities, which means 70% of the people are not going to buy. So part of being an effective salesperson is identifying which of those 70% are and then not spending too much time, effort and resource on those ones. Certainly not the 30 or 40% that are definitely not going to buy. So it's picking up on that and taking prospects to a yes or no. Either's fine. The fix to this is at the beginning of each conversation, you frame the sales conversation as having a binary output at the end. So it sounds something like this. At the end of this call, I'll give you, if it looks like it's a good fit, I'll outline the pricing and what it costs and the guarantees. If you haven't said no to me, the next step will be a go-to-market workshop where we'll dive in and fully, and that'll represent the first part of the engagement. Does that sound okay, prospect? Yes. Getting their buy-in to that is like critically important, because if you get to the end of the call and then there's resistance, then you've got something you can call back the contract and question that. Prospects don't move forward because they're not certain, and that's the information that you need to get out of this part of the sales process. But by being lulled into thinking that maybes are okay, what happens is we let prospects off the hook, we don't tackle the objections, and then the objections stay and fester and then eventually kill your deals. Point 6 is the prospect doesn't know the cost of inaction. You have to show them the bill. Prospects often don't realize what it costs for them to not take action on where they are now. The result is that they don't feel any urgency. Now, salespeople try to combat this by manufacturing urgency around scarcity in terms of end of the month deals or things like that. But in reality, for B2B sales, majority of prospects see straight through this and it harms your credibility. And even if it doesn't, it wastes margin. You end up giving away margin that you would have got elsewhere. You end up giving away margin because you're discounting your service to prospects that were going to buy anyway. It very rarely works where you engineer a discount or engineer urgency and then try to get it. So what do you do? Well, instead of that, you have to shine a light for the prospect to show them what it is costing them to stay where they are. What do you mean by that? It would sound something like this. So, Mr. Prospect, you said at the moment you're closing 10% of your opportunities. You're closing 10 deals a month out of 100 leads, which is 10%, and each of those closed deals is £10,000. Is that right? Yes. So you're closing around £100,000 a month in revenue. Yes. Where do you think the close rate should be? Well, I'm thinking it should be around 20%. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. So does the math seem right to me that at the moment, by staying where you are and not addressing this, that the difference between where you are now and where you want to get to is around £100,000 a month? Is that right? Yes. And just let that sink in. The prospect has to own the number that it costs them to stay where they are and not take action. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to engineer urgency later on in that sales process. Point 7, the objection that kills your deals is the one that you never asked about. The deal was going well, it was progressing, and then all of a sudden it just stalled and you got ghosted. You didn't realize why, but something happened. When they went to another stakeholder or they thought about it, it just went quiet. And it takes you completely by surprise. You didn't see it coming. And the reason is because there was an objection which the prospect gave you a clue. There is always clues. And that you didn't pick up or investigate it and instead just brush it under the carpet. I always think about objections as zombies. You can either kill them when you see them, as soon as you see them, or you can wait and they won't go away. But what will happen is they'll surface later on in the sales process and surprise you. And if you get surprised by a zombie, you get bitten and die and turn into a zombie and you have a horrible death. It's always when objections get brushed under the carpet. Most salespeople just avoid the uncomfortable questions. Whereas if you query it with a genuine curiosity, it gives you a chance to surface the objection and understand the real reason behind it. Mistake number 8, you're putting far too much emphasis on building rapport with prospects. People do not buy from people. I know you're sick of hearing it. One of the things that I hate hearing in sales is people buy from people. No, people do not buy from people. People buy from people who they think will help them get what they want. It's not about building rapport. It's about building trust and credibility and leading the prospect through a process. Instead of worrying about building a rapport by asking bullshit questions about, oh, how is the weather over there? Or how are you doing? Or have you got kids? And this small surface level small talk, concentrate on setting the frame and the expectations for the call. The start of a sales call should focus on setting the expectations about what's going to happen. It should explain to the prospect what they're going to get as a result of interacting with you throughout the course of the call. It should explain what they need to do to get that outcome, and then it should explain the binary outcome at the end of the call and get their buy-in. If you do those things rather than focus on rapport, then it will increase your results exponentially and you'll have a much better quality of conversation. I have never ever listened to a sales call where the frame has been set in that way at the beginning and the high quality of the conversation hasn't been much higher than if it hadn't have done otherwise. But we put far too much emphasis on building rapport, thinking that if we get prospects to magically like us, that they're automatically going to buy. Yes, it's good to be liked. And with all things being equal, if the prospect likes you more than the other person, then they will go with you. But what people think of is that it papers over the cracks of a poor sales process, and it absolutely doesn't. Focus on building the frame at the beginning of the call, and then you'll have much better conversation. The start of my sales call sounds exactly like this. Hi, Dave. Dave, okay, appreciate your time, putting the time in. I'm excited to dive in. Look, I want to get us to the point as quickly as possible where we can decide between us if it's a good fit or not. I've got no interest in trying to sell to people unless we're convinced that we can help. And so in order to get us to that point, I'll ask you a bunch of questions about your business, where you want to get to, why you potentially think we might be able to help. And then on the back of that, only if I'm convinced we can help will I outline the program, what the costs are, any guarantees. And if you haven't said no, we can agree the next steps from that point forward. Does that sound okay? And then getting their buy-in by saying, does that sound okay, is the key to this because it encourages compliance. It uses the consistency principle by Robert Cialdini. If you haven't read the book Influence, I would recommend it. I recommend it in nearly every video that I do. But it means that if a prospect has stated something out loud, they are much more likely to follow through with it in their actions. You can use it in sales to make sure that you have good conversations by getting compliance at the beginning of the call. One thing to take away from you is to concentrate on writing out, how do you start your sales calls? Do you make it clear what's going to happen throughout the call, what's going to be expected of the prospect, and what the mutual benefit is going to be as a result of going through that? And crucially, do you get their buy-in by saying, is that okay? Check what you say on your calls. And if you haven't done that, practice that, write it out and use that. Tell me how you get on. Mistake number 9 is you have sales reps that are running around on their own process and you're reliant on them doing their process rather than having their own internally. I see this so many times. If you haven't got a process for your reps to follow and you are not able to get visibility throughout that sales process and the quality of the conversations that the rep is having, then you're resigned to managing on gut feel and just being reliant on the rep's feedback to decide if a deal's coming in or not. A good sales process should be robust in the fact that every stage that a prospect is, you should expect certain amounts of information that the salesperson has gathered from the prospect. If the salesperson can't give you that information, then it doesn't qualify for that seat to be in the forecast. This allows you to get an actual view on what's going to happen and what's more likely to come in. And it also allows you to be able to flush out any bullshit if you've got a salesperson who isn't doing the right things and is just trying to pull the wool over your eyes by saying, yeah, the deal's coming in. In all of our sync selling programs, we now give you access to sync selling AI, which means as a founder, you see exactly what conversations are going on. You can see deal risk, you see whether the right questions are being asked by your salespeople at a glance. And then it also tells you what the salespeople will need to work on, whether it's objection handling or discovery, so that they can work with a superstar sales coach like me to put it right. That way they get a really quick feedback loop and the reps get better much quicker because they're able to understand what good looks like and correct their faults. If you're wondering whether this is a problem in your organization, then have a look and try and think about the last 3 deals where you thought they were coming over the line and then they didn't. What did you see and observe? Why did you think it was coming in and then it didn't? And I bet you any money, often it's because of visibility and you are reliant or held ransom to rep feedback as opposed to understanding exactly what was going on in a deal. Similarly, if you're a founder, if you watch the calls back, I guarantee you will find clues as to why the prospect didn't go ahead, but you didn't kill the objections where they stood. And the last killer is it's too expensive is never the actual objection. It's too expensive can mean any number of things. It can mean I don't have any money. It can mean I don't see the value in your solution, or it can mean I compared you to someone else. Without understanding exactly what they mean by saying by that, it makes it impossible for us to address the actual objection. The worst thing that you can do is start defending the price in a situation where you don't know where the real objection is coming from. So instead, do this. Next time you get it's too expensive, seek to clarify and understand. Always acknowledge, okay, that's a fair point. And then you seek to understand. When you say it's too expensive, how are you thinking about that? The reason I say, how are you thinking, is because I want to understand whether they're thinking it's too much to pay, i.e., oh, well, 10 to 15K, it's a lot to pay up front, in which case you can go down the route and address that where it stands. Or I want to see if it's something else like uncertainty or logistics about the product or the service. Unless you understand that, you aren't able to overcome it or look to reframe. So it's really important to understand where they are. As an example, someone might say, oh, well, yeah, it's too expensive. Oh, okay. Walk me through. How are you thinking about that? Well, it's just 10K is a lot to spend up front in one payment. Okay. And outside of the upfront payment, is there anything else at all that is stopping you from proceeding with this? No. Okay. So when the prospect has said that, I know that I can put everything aside and I'm just focusing on that. Dealing with the 10K up front is easy. I'm just dealing with logistics. But what is bad is if someone says, oh, it's the 10K up front, and then they'll just go into trying to overcome the 10K, but then they won't know that there's anything else. You have to flush out the other objections first, which is why I say, look, aside from the 10K, are you 100% sure that everything else is exactly as you need it to get where you need to go? Homework on that one is next time you get the it's too expensive or any other objection, make sure you seek to understand and practice saying, that's a fair question. How are you thinking about that? And you'll see the quality of the information that you get increase significantly. And that's it. 20 years of sales experience, 300 founders coached, 185 million pounds generated in revenue in 60 different industries, all led me to this point and these 10 deal killers, which we've just gone through in this video. To recap, reason that your deals are dying. Number one is your discovery stays on the surface, skimming like a little stone by a little stone. Number two, your champion is walking into his meetings and you haven't given any assets that sell for you when you aren't in the room. So your champion gets excited, he goes to sell, and then he makes a massive mess of it because you haven't armed him or coached him to how to have those conversations, and you haven't got assets which sell for you when you aren't in the room. Three, you're sending quotes or proposals without walking them through on the phone. A proposal is not a boomerang. Do not send proposals ever without a walkthrough book through, okay? I'm serious. Yes, you. Don't do it. Four is you're pitching the product or what you do as opposed to the problem or what you get. The prospect doesn't care about what you do, they care about what they get. So when you're presenting your solution, it should always be, this is what you said, and this is what most people do when they try to achieve this goal, and this is why it doesn't work, and this is what happens. This is our solution, and then you talk about your solution, and then you talk about the benefit, and then you tie it in and say, can you see how this is different to the other things that you've tried or might have seen before? And that's what you do. This is, you're presenting to solve the problem that the prospect has got, not presenting what you do. Five is that your pipeline is full of maybes because you're a little scaredy cat and you won't take the prospect to a yes or a no. Binary decisions are successes in sales. A yes is great because we get paid, and a no is great because we don't have to spend time, money, effort, and resource on people who aren't going to head. The worst thing is a maybe. It saps all your energy, time, and resource, and it's very unlikely that maybes will come across the line. Get better at asking questions and helping the prospect to decide yes or no. Even if it's a right decision, sometimes that's going to mean putting a little bit of pressure on the prospect to try to educate or reframe, because often it's a prospect's limiting beliefs which will stop them proceeding with the solution. Six is you need to show the prospect the cost of inaction. If you don't show or shine a light on what it costs the prospect to stay where they are, then you can't expect them to have urgency into moving forward. You can't manufacture urgency with bullshit kind of, oh, it's the price is going up at the end of the month. In the most instances, especially sophisticated sales, prospects see through that. You have to be able to shine a light on what the problem is costing the prospect to stay where they are and do nothing. 7, you're not killing objections or objection zombies where they stand. Objections are like zombies, and prospects will always give you clues as to why they won't go ahead. You have a choice. You can either get better at spotting objections or concerns up front and questioning them there and then, or you can brush them under the carpet and then get surprised when they crop up as zombies later on in the sales cycle and bite you on the neck and kill you, and then you turn into a zombie. Don't blame me. Next is you can't hire a sales rep and expect him to come with a black book and his own sales process. You wouldn't hire a chef and then not give him any recipes and expect him to cook the food that you want your customers to eat. So don't do it with salespeople. Even if they've got industry experience, it doesn't mean that they can come in and just magically make things work. You have to show them a process, and you have to be able to get visibility on whether they're saying the right things at the right time. 9, when someone says it's too expensive, it's rarely the objection. In fact, it's too expensive is a nothing statement. It just doesn't mean anything before you understand what they're comparing it to. And 10, last but not least, is when they say it's too expensive, it doesn't actually mean anything. You have to clarify that. So understand what they're comparing it to and make sure that that's the only objection before trying to reframe their expectations or how they think about the expense. And that's it. Now, if you want a system that fixes all of these issues and gets your salespeople closing more deals in less time, or you as the founder closing more deals without being on every call, then you can work with us and you can get started for free. Just click a link in the description, book a call. As long as it's a good fit, then we'll get you started for free. If not, we'll still give you some sales advice on the call. So all good. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see more content like this. See you on the other side.